Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy at the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. More than 40 years after the Supreme Court made abortion legal, it remains a hugely divisive issue, at least politically. In recent years, anti-abortion activists have waged a ferocious assault on abortion rights, shutting down abortion clinics and placing new hurdles in front of women who seek to have abortions. But is abortion really an issue that most Americans are passionate about? What is the campaign against abortion really about? And why have those who support women's right to choose been so mealy-mouthed in its defense? Poet, essayist, and social critic Katha Pollitt addresses those issues and more in her latest book, Pro, Reclaiming Abortion Rights, which has just been published by Picador USA. Why is it that in this day and time, the debate over abortion rights is as bitter as it's ever been?
That's such a good question, and thank you for having me on the show to talk about it. Well, I think there are a number of reasons. One is that abortion poses questions in a very stark way. You can see it as a question of life or death, or you could see it as a question of women's autonomy and women's rights. And as a nation, America is very ambivalent about that.
Between, as you point out in your book, between 2011 to 2013, states enacted 205 new restrictions on abortion. Tell us about some of those restrictions.
Oh, wow. Well, the really major ones in Texas were about, well, first of all, a 20-week ban on abortion after 20 weeks, and what are called TRAP laws, targeted regulation of abortion providers, which set standards for abortion clinics that are much higher than they need to be for that kind of procedure. So that shut down a number of clinics in Texas.
The abortions have to be done by a doctor who has admitting privileges.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, that's a separate thing, though. But part of it is how wide the corridors have to be, how big the parking lot has to be. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And then a rule that the doctors have to have admitting privileges at a hospital nearby, and then hospitals would refuse to give the admitting privileges. Right. So that has shut down about half the clinics in Texas, and it would have been 8, except that the court said, you can keep them open while we're deciding. Mm-hmm.
So is it the Republicans? Is it the religious groups that are driving this?
Well, it's both, because those on this issue are the same. It's very interesting. The evangelical Christians, which are an enormous part of the electorate. It's like 26% of the electorate, and this is their banner issue. And the Republican Party has pretty much gone and made an alliance with them to get their votes, so that you vote for abortion restrictions, and you get abortion restrictions, and you also get lower taxes on billionaires. So it is a fusion of politics and religion.
Mm-hmm. And that ban on abortion after 20 weeks, that violates Roe v. Wade, doesn't it?
It does violate Roe v. Wade, which has the idea that until viability,
which is about 24 weeks,
is about 24 weeks, the abortion can't be restricted except to preserve the health of the woman. But a lot of people don't know that 20 weeks is when the sonogram, when that sonogram tells you about a lot of problems, potential problems in the fetus. And so it's when you would find a particularly large number of abortions that are performed for medical reasons. Also, late in pregnancy, things can go wrong. Things can go wrong for the woman. And so it looks like you've got 5 months. Good Lord, how much time do you need to make up your mind? But actually, different things are happening at that point in pregnancy. Mm-hmm. If I could say one more thing.
Sure.
One reason, late-term abortions are distressing to a lot of people. They're distressing to most people. One reason women have late-term abortions, besides the reasons I mentioned, is that they are chasing the money that they can't afford an earlier abortion, and after the first trimester, the price goes up week by week.
Right.
So if people are really distressed by those late abortions, they should be in favor of greater accessibility earlier in pregnancy, but mostly they're not.
We talked about the sonograms, and you say in your book that the sonogram has become a real tool of the anti-abortion people.
Oh, sure, because you know, look, it's a baby. Of course, look, it's a baby. It isn't a baby. It doesn't even look like a baby. But what it does, it's very interesting. A sonogram erases the woman. A sonogram turns the woman into the background. She is the land, and the embryo is the growing plant. She's the stage set, and the embryo is the actor. You can't see them both at the same time, and I think that's such an interesting metaphor for the whole situation.
Right. Now, ironically, you suggest that abortion is not really that high on the list of priorities of most Americans.
Well, this is so fascinating. You would think, okay, if you believe that it is the murder of a child, that would have to be the most important thing to you, because what is more important than, you know, infanticide? But actually, you don't find that it's a very high priority issue for most Americans. But many more people who are anti-abortion are single issue voters on that issue than are pro-choice voters, which is very unfortunate, since most Americans are pro-choice, but it's a lower priority issue for them.
Right. By menopause, 3 in 10 American women have terminated at least one pregnancy, maybe even more. There have been 55 million abortions since Roe v. Wade, and there were over 1 million in 2011, which would seem to suggest that abortion plays a pretty vital role in the lives of American women.
Well, yes, and of families and society. And that's what I hope to do in my book, was kind of to flip the whole way we think about abortion, from thinking about it in terms of the fetus, which is, or embryo, or fertilized egg, or unimplanted fertilized egg, which are all babies in the minds of anti-abortion people, was to bring the woman back center stage and show how it's really good for everybody if women can have children when they're ready to take care of those children. And not to have children in a kind of random way based on an accidental pregnancy with a man that may want to have nothing to do with the child, or that they want to have nothing to do with. I mean, don't you think that's best, that parents should be ready? And yet there's this idea that, oh my God, if we keep abortion legal, nobody's going to have babies. This is ridiculous. Of course they will.
Most Americans, I mean, if you look at the polls, most Americans don't want to make abortion illegal. They support it to some extent. But the general message that you get is that, as you say, you can have your abortion as long as you feel really, really bad about it.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting thing that the more I talk to people about the book and their feelings about abortion and their thoughts about abortion, that what looms very large is the sense that women are callous and careless. They can have their abortion, but they need to understand that they're killing a baby. And I'm thinking, well, okay, say they all felt that they were killing a baby and they still had an abortion. Would that really be okay with you, or is that the screen? But there is this feeling that you have to really demonstrate how badly you feel. And I think that that's really strange, because with other things we allow people to do, we don't have that rule. We don't say, you can have your divorce as long as you cry a lot, you know? But in abortion, the feelings of women have become almost what it's all about.
Right.
So you have this whole idea about regret, abortion regret. Abortion regret, other than as a transitory thing, is really not a big deal. It's not very many women who feel that way, but those women go to the state legislatures, they read their stories about how everything went wrong in their life for the next 20 years after they had an abortion, and how sorry they are, and then they found Jesus, and that's very persuasive to people who would like to restrict abortion anyway. Then they can say they're helping women.
Right, right. The main argument against abortion seems to be, as you said, that it's tantamount to murder. You say that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Now, this didn't used to be the only argument, and I sometimes think that the other arguments, which I'll explain in a minute, they're still out there, but people can't really say them. So, for example, it used to be, why is abortion a terrible thing? It allows women to conceal their infidelity. It means that women aren't taking up their God-ordained role of motherhood. It means that they are postponing motherhood in order to have fun, and of course women can't do that. But it was more officially about women's place in society, which had to be, you know, firmly controlled by the family, by men, by the church. There was also the idea that who shouldn't have abortions? White women, middle-class white women shouldn't have abortions, because then the country doesn't have.
It's going to be taken over by these blacks and Latinos who are having all these babies. Is that,
well, that's now.
it?
But when this argument first started in America, it was more about Italians.
Okay.
So it was more about you know, Southern Europeans and Jews and you know, that kind of the immigrants that were coming in at the end of the 19th century. But now it's about blacks and Hispanics, and immigrants. The argument that it's murder is sort of the only argument left. And yet that argument really makes no sense at all.
And you say the people who make it don't really believe it.
Well, I think they don't, because I'll tell you, if they did believe that the fetus was the unborn, the embryo, because it's only a fetus at 11 or 12 weeks, and we always talk about the fetus, but actually most abortions are of embryos. And if you said, I'm for embryonic life, that wouldn't sound as persuasive as fetal life. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you really believed that the unborn was a person, the way a woman is a person, the way a 40-year-old is a person, or a baby is a person, then you couldn't be in favor of allowing rape victims to have an abortion. And yet most Americans do favor that. As long as you didn't have voluntary sex, you can have your abortion. But why is that? From the point of view of the unborn, it's the same. Right? So that shows you that it's about something else. It's about how that unborn got to be in there. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is a whole aspect of abortion opposition that is really about the sexual revolution and women's rights.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more with Katha Pollitt after the following message, where we're going to talk about sex. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Cheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Katha Pollitt, whose latest book, Pro: Reclaiming Abortion Rights, has just been published by Picador. So, if opposition to abortion is not really about protecting human life, what is it really about?
Well, I think it's a reaction to the growing secularization of American life, to the sexual revolution, and to feminism.
That you have women out here doing, not only going into the workplace but also having sex with whenever they want to, without fear of pregnancy? Is that women gone wild? Is that what you're talking about?
I think a lot of it is about women gone wild.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you also say that it threatens an idealized view of women's role in the world, which is to primarily be childbearers.
Yes, that's why women are here. They're here to bear children. They're here to raise those children and be the hearth of the family and heart of the family. And it's, I think, difficult for some people to realize that life has changed a lot. Single motherhood is so common now. And you find often by the same people, Cheryl, who say, oh, being a single mother, that's so terrible. That's the root of all the problems. but we can't have abortion. Well,
Right.
you know.
Right. Right.
And yet you find a lot of women will have an abortion because they don't want to be a single mother. And that polls show that I don't want to be a single mother
It's not a good.
is not a good enough reason to most Americans for you to have an abortion.
You see abortion not as a morality issue, but as a human rights issue.
Absolutely. There is no other circumstance in which your body can be used against your will in this way. They don't tie people up and say, you've got to give blood, we need your kidney, you know. And that's even if it is, even if you do believe that the unborn is a person, that does not give it the right to use your body. And let's remember, America doesn't even have a very good record on maternal mortality. 800 women a year, that's pretty high for a modern industrial country like we have. And that doesn't reckon with tremendous numbers, surprising numbers of near fatal pregnancies and childbirths and all kinds of trauma and your whole the ruination of your body.
Right.
And yet, you know, you don't have to do those things for your born child, but you have to do them for an unborn child, according to the anti-abortion people. So that makes the fetus is a kind of super person.
Okay, maybe there's a movie coming. Super fetus. You say there are 6 myths about them. Briefly tell me about those myths.
Well, let's see. The first one I talk about is that abortion, the Bible bans abortion. This is so not true. The Bible never mentions abortion. And people who want to say that it does have to they take poetic statements and turn them into, in their interpretation, you can't have an abortion. So, okay, God says to, I believe, Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. That means abortion should be illegal. It doesn't mean that at all. If it does mean anything, it means you were predestined, which is a very different idea, and certainly not all denominations believe in predestination, do they? Another one is abortion is very dangerous. It's not very dangerous. It is significantly less dangerous than childbirth. Childbirth is dangerous. Childbirth is 12 to 14 times as dangerous as abortion is. But nobody says, yeah, and before you have a baby, the doctor has to come explain to you all the awful things that could happen to you, and you have to go home for 24 hours and really think about whether you want to continue this pregnancy.
But they do that for
They
abortion.
do, yes.
Right.
That's a lot of those restrictions are about slowing down the process. And let's see, what are some...
Abortion is dangerous.
Abortion.
Oh, you said that.
Yes,
Abortion is racist.
Abortion is racist. This is very interesting because the anti-abortion movement, which has been trying to they've put up these billboards in some places that say black children are an endangered species, illustrated with a picture of a very adorable little black child, or the most dangerous place for an African-American child is in the womb. So what does that say? That says the biggest danger to black children is their mothers, is women. You know, not racism, not, you know, police shooting them, you know, for...
How about the streets of New York as a dangerous
really,
place? Right.
Not pollution, not ill health, not, you know, none of this. No, it's black women. It's black women specifically. Right. Not even black men, black women. And black women were so outraged about these billboards, which are put up in black communities, that they had to be taken down.
Another one, that women are being forced and coerced into having abortion.
Oh yeah, this is another thing that that state legislatures are getting sort of active about. Is false statistics that seem to show that many, many women are coerced into abortion. Now, the real study shows that almost no women are coerced into abortion. Yeah, I mean, if you're 14 or you're 15 and you come home and say, I'm pregnant, your parents might say, you know, an abortion is really the best thing here. And they might try to pressure you, but that's not the same as coercion.
Right.
We would all hope. I mean, if they coerce you to have the baby, nobody minds about that.
Right.
And that also happens.
That happens a lot.
Yes.
And the sixth myth that abortion opponents would never punish women.
Yes, well, abortion opponents do punish women. In countries where the Catholic Church holds sway and abortion is completely illegal, like El Salvador, there are women in prison for having miscarriages that the prosecutors thought was an abortion, an abortion in trouble. And in our country, women have been arrested for self-abortion. Which for some reason is illegal even when regular abortion is not.
Right.
And there's also this growing movement to criminalize behavior during pregnancy that is thought, rightly or wrongly, to produce a stillbirth or a miscarriage.
Right. I've always thought that, you know, if it could be shown that men drinking alcohol cause terrible, you know, damage to the fetus, nobody would keep young men from drinking.
No.
Just so they couldn't drink.
No, they wouldn't. It is all on the woman.
Right. I remember cases, and this is not like about prosecution, but some woman who went into a bar, she's pregnant, and she ordered a glass of wine. And the young bartender tells, I'm not going to give you a glass of wine because you're pregnant. And, you know, this young person, not a doctor, not an expert, making decisions about what this woman's choice is.
Yes. In fact, there was a case where a woman who was breastfeeding had ordered a beer, and the waitress called the police.
Incredible. You suggest that part of the problem is that the pro-choice people have been so mealy-mouthed on the abortion debate. And I have noticed this, that they equivocate. Even Hillary Clinton, when she was revving her presidential campaign, started saying that she could possibly support legislation outlawing late-term abortions. And this is Hillary. But they go along with this, you know, oh, you know, we hate abortion like everybody else. It's terrible, it's tragic, but we shouldn't outlaw it. We should just make it very rare.
Right. Safe, legal, and rare was a mantra of the Clintons that became very popular for a while. I think they kind of backed off it a little bit. It wasn't in the Democratic Party platform the last time around, although it had been for several cycles. And what's wrong with that, safe, legal, and rare? What's wrong with that is it puts the accent in the wrong place. The accent shouldn't be on, we want there to be as few abortions as possible. The accent should be, we want all women to have good care and to have what they need to lead good lives and go to school, get their education, raise a family if that's what they want to do at the right time for them. So we should say safe, legal, and available. That's what it should be.
So part of, I mean, what you're doing, a lot of what you're doing in the book is saying that we need to come up with a new conversation about abortion. What would that, you've said part of it, but what would that conversation say?
The conversation would say, women need to have lives that work for them. They need to deal with a very challenging economic climate. They need their education. They need to be able to work. They need child care. They need all kinds of things they need good health care. They need all kinds of things, including good birth control, that will enable people to live a reasonable life. And men need this too. You know, it can't be fun for a man to impregnate a woman and then not want to have anything to do with her or the child. So men need to also be take an interest in the abortion issue. And this is good for society. It's not good for society when people are unable to really give their children all the love and care that children need, and also have their own dreams. I mean, think of all the lost years of education, the lost hopes of women because of having a child at the wrong time.
So the bottom line is that we should be able to say outright that abortion is not a bad thing or a tragedy, but a necessary human good.
It's I think it is a human good. And if you look at the countries where abortion is available, they're the countries where people live really well, like Scandinavia and France and Germany and in the UK, all of which have better records than we do, although the UK is sinking fast in terms of helping women and children. So I think, people in this country tend to think like you're either for children or you're for abortion. But no, they are part of the same picture of giving people a shot at a really good life.
Do you see anything hopeful that's going on in the abortion rights battle?
Well, the most hopeful thing, it's sometimes hard to find hope here after we're talking right after the last elections, but I think that the newest generation of abortion activists are great. I think that they are very proactive, they're creative, and I like the conversation around reproductive justice, reproductive justice which puts abortion in a larger context of what do women need, what do communities need in order to raise children well, in order to have a baby as well as not have a baby. And I think that's really great because I think that it's not, pro-choice is I like the pro-choice term and I like it, it's very short. Like pro-life is short, pro-choice is short, but it does kind of end at birth.
Right.
And yet, when people make that decision of whether or not to have a child, they're not thinking just about, oh, then I'll be pregnant, then I'll have to go through childbirth. It's also about how will I raise this baby?
Right, right. And all the supports that are necessary to do that.
Yes, and abortion is so much more common among poor women for all kinds of reasons. But surely one of those reasons is the very difficult life that poor women have.
Right, right. Well, it's a very interesting book. And I wish we could go on, but we can't because we're out of time. So you just have to read the book.
Read the book, yes. There's a thought.
I want to thank Katha Pollitt for joining me today. Reclaiming Abortion Rights has just been published by Picador. For the City University of New York and 1 to 1, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.